Hello everyone, and welcome to Nintendo Everything Refresh. Thank you so much for joining us. This is episode 15. I'm joined here by Dennis Gagliardato.
Hello, hello.
We've got Luiz Estrella.
Hello everyone.
And we have got Nicolas Chadet.
Hi everyone.
All right, now we have got a big week. As I'm sure all of you are aware, there was a Nintendo Partner Direct Mini last week. Not the full fabled Direct that everyone was hoping for, but still a lot of really good stuff. I think a lot of people were pretty impressed with what Nintendo had to show from a third-party perspective. We're going to spend the first half of the show just kind of talking through it and talking through about what caught our eyes and what maybe you should keep on your radar if you haven't watched it. And then in the back half of the show, we've got some interesting things to talk about. We've got some Metroid rumors we want to discuss. We've got Nintendo announcing a new kind of repair service for Japan, which is interesting. And talking a little bit about a canceled Disney game that was back in development in the Wii days. So some fun stuff to talk about this week. But let's go up to the start of the show. And hey, before we get into it, if you're here in America, happy 4th of July weekend, everyone. Be safe out there. And hope you all are having fun celebrating with your families.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have like fireworks going on right now, but they're literally like at this moment as we started this podcast, they just started lighting up.
Yes, if you guys hear screaming people, it's just people outside
I do apologize.
having a good time. Yeah, we're all inside recording and
I promise it's not Michael Myers. It's okay.
That's all right. All right, so this was a pretty packed partner direct, I think is safe to say. So they started off showing Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, which we've talked about quite a bit. That's out now, isn't it, Nicolas?
Oh yes.
you're probably deep into that at this point.
He's probably playing right now.
Yeah, he's like half paying attention to the podcast, just going through it. That's awesome. But the first big reveal we got of something new was the Switch is getting a port of Nier Automata, which came out a couple years ago on PS4 and Xbox One, and was very well received. For those of you who aren't familiar, Nier is a spin-off series of, what is it, Dennis? Drakengard? Is that right?
I've always called, well, yeah, I mean, that's not wrong. Drakengard. Yeah, I mean, it just kind of, yeah, I mean, both of those are correct. Yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, Nier Automata was a really big game. It really kind of, I want to say it crept into the mainstream a little bit, and it's crazy that we're finally getting it on Switch all these years later.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones, Drakengard 3, I believe I had on PS3. And that's one of those games that I always wished, got not necessarily a sequel, but some sort of remaster or remake. But I mean, Nier has been nothing but successful and incredible. So, I mean, it's so I mean, do we need Drakengard? I mean, part of me still wants it, but being a sort of pseudo sequel.
People have even heard of Drakengard, but people know the Nier name at this point.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, at this point, for sure. Because even the first one, unfortunately, when that was out on 360, where I first played it, that one was relatively niche, right? So, like, I mean, I would recommend it to so many people. Like, dude, you got to try Nier. But it wasn't until Automata came out where people really started paying attention. But also at the time, especially compared to now, like Platinum Games has also become such a big name, so when you see something that says Platinum Games on it, immediately it's going to be something absolutely quality, right? But back then they definitely were stumbling a little bit, especially with they were doing a lot of licensed stuff with Activision, and they were doing anything and everything under the sun to just try to keep their jobs basically. But now they're in a very comfy place, thank God, because they're nothing but talented people, especially being run by one of the creative minds, Hideki Kamiya, who's the brilliant mastermind behind Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, Okami, Beautiful Joe, the list goes on and on, right? So but yeah, it's that was a very different time back then. But yeah, Nier now is in a very, very good place. But yeah.
Yeah, that one is coming out later this year, and I'm surprised it got running on the Switch. I mean, I know it's an older game at this point, but stuff like that always amazes me, what developers are able to do.
Yeah, it always felt like a nicer looking game, relatively to some of the other PS4 offerings.
Sure.
It's not one I would have ever expected to come to Switch, but I'm really happy it has, because I've never been able to play it on any other platforms. And I think that some of the other ports of the game have been generally pretty poorly received. They weren't super well optimized, but
Yeah, the PC port had some issues. But I think they
Yeah.
worked most of that out at this point.
Most
that's what
of
I'm
it,
hoping,
yeah.
because
Yeah,
don't,
definitely.
don't tell Nintendo, but I'm probably going to play that one on my Steam Deck at some point.
Yeah, I own that game. I actually owned that game 3 times. Like I have it on PC and Xbox digitally. They got the End of Yorha edition. But then I did play the base game a little while back when it was only on PS4 at the time. And but yeah, I mean it's if you love Platinum games, you're gonna love Nier. And if you've never played it because you didn't have access to those other platforms, get it on Switch,
Yeah.
I suppose. But I'm still a little worried just because I mean a game like this, I don't know.
It's we'll see, but what they
We'll
showed off
see,
looked
yeah.
pretty good. Yeah.
It does actually.
Yeah. By the way,
it's
there was just
running at 30
Oh,
frames per second.
Yeah.
yeah.
So for an
yeah.
action game, that's not ideal, but
Yeah.
it's still workable.
Yeah, it can be done, but yeah, I'm really excited for that one. I'm curious to see how that one will fare. By the way, there was so much announced in this direct that we're not really gonna have time to talk about everything. So I'm probably just gonna quickly mention some of these smaller games that were announced. And don't get me wrong, some of these look very cool. They showed off this game called Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which is an Annapurna game. That looked super cool. It's kind of got like this neon-y, I don't want to say cyberpunk, more like a kind of like a noir aesthetic to it. I don't really know what you're gonna do in it, but it certainly caught my attention.
It's Annapurna, and usually with their games, I've always considered them the sort of A24 of gaming. For those who aren't familiar with A24, they're very much an art house film, it's like studio company. So, and Annapurna is kind of like that a lot, where they just put out all these crazy games, right? Like Sayonara Wild Hearts, and just The Artful Escape, and most recently a memoir.
They don't
Blue.
really
And they're-
strike out. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But this one looks to be up their alley, and I think this will be another great game. I think they recently did Neon White too, another fantastic.
Yeah, they've been on a roll lately. Then we had they showed off Super Bomberman R2, which was really out of left field for me because didn't they shut down Super Bomberman R like not too long ago? Like all the online
Pretty
stuff
sure.
for that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they shut down specifically Super Bomberman R Online, which was, I think, a free-to-play Battle Royale-esque Bomberman that they released after Super Bomberman R. So, this is why, presumably.
Right. Well, and Super Bomberman R was like one of like the 5 Switch launch games available here in the U.S. So it's weird that 6 years later they're making a sequel that I don't really think people were asking for, but
Honestly, if you want my honest opinion, the most shocking part about that announcement wasn't the fact that it was a sequel, but it was the fact that Konami was still making
I was
games.
going to say that.
oh my gosh, that's great. Konami has put out some smaller games lately, but yeah, it always does surprise me when I see something that's not a pachinko machine coming from them.
Right. Right.
I mean, the first Super Bomberman R, it's one of the less worst things that they released in the last couple of
There you
years.
go.
So
True.
it's cool to see a sequel. It doesn't seem to be very different. I think it basically
No.
seems to be like the same visual, the same stuff, but with some new modes. But okay, at least the series is alive. At least the character is alive. The IP is alive. So
Yeah. I'm sure the Bomberman fans out there, if those exist, I assume they do, but they're probably thinking, oh no, there's a ton of differences that just us casuals just did not notice. But,
Poor Bomberman.
but
Like,
no,
poor
it's fine.
Bomberman.
Poor
Because I remember I
He
used
got-
to have so
he got
much fun
gypped.
with... He did. I had so much fun with Bomberman 64 as a kid, But ever since then, it's like Bomberman... the rest is history, really, with Bomberman, but yeah.
Yeah, it's no Sonic Frontiers. Well, we can say that much.
Well, yeah.
And then, hey, speaking of other just random out of left field announcements, actually, I'm going to get to that in a minute. I really want to talk about this Pac-Man World remaster or remake, but there's a Mega Man
Repack?
Battle, yes, repack. But there's a Mega Man Battle Network collection that is like 10 Mega Man games coming all in one
yeah.
package.
That's the one I was waiting for the most. Because, having the Mega Man collection, like Legacy Collection 1 and 2 was fine. but like Mega Man X and these advanced ones were the ones that I was the most like looking forward to, and I'm glad we're finally here in terms of collections and stuff. So this one I'm like super stoked for.
Yeah.
You don't have to pull out the Wii U to download them
Yeah.
anymore.
No, thank God.
It's super cool to make
Yeah.
those games from Game Boy Advance available, like they did with the ZX series, and now with the Battle Network. I never got the opportunity to play, but I loved the anime when I was a kid. So I want to give a chance to the series. It seems to be like a very cool strategic JRPG.
Yeah, they're definitely different from your standard Mega Man, but that doesn't make it a problem at all. Like Mega Man as an IP adapts really well into that genre. And yeah, those games were just really, really great for their time, and then probably still hold up today. I hope, anyways.
Yeah,
The only
it's-
thing that's kind of giving me pause is the whole Capcom method of we're going to release a Legacy Collection for these games, but what that means is we're actually releasing 2 versions of them.
Oh,
Like the first 5, or I think in this case it's the first 6, and then the next 4 or something.
That's true, yeah. Digitally,
And-
anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, digitally. That's the thing. I think they haven't said if the physical version is going to be all of them one cart, or if it's going to be what they did with the older Legacy collections, where it's going to be, hey, you have half of them on cart, and then the other half is a digital download. I assume that's probably going to be what they do, but man, I wish we could just get everything on one cart.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point though, pretty much every Mega Man game is on the Switch. I mean, not all of them, but it feels like almost all of them.
we
are on
just
the
need
Switch.
Legends right
Just
now.
about.
Other than Legends,
Yeah.
yeah.
Legends, Star Force,
Oh, okay.
a handful of spin-offs like Stalker, Powered Up, the Battle Power Fighters or something. I think
Remind
is one of
me,
them.
Yeah.
was Legends pretty much just 64? Was it just that one, but on PS1? Like, which one was that? Mega Man?
There
It
were
was the same. I think
Two
it's the
Legends
same.
games.
Is the same? Okay.
Oh, on 64 and PS1. I think there's just a couple
Okay.
of difference, but it's the same game overall.
Yeah, and then there's the spin-off one that had what's her face in like the mech. I'm just trying to remember.
Oh yeah, Tronbon. There was
There we
a
go, that
Tronbon
one.
spin-off. I
Yep.
think.
Oh.
Yep, that one.
So their next Mega Man collection is going to be called Mega Man Collection. Everything else,
Yeah, exactly.
Everything
all
else collection.
together.
The other ones.
The other ones.
The other ones, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and then I'm excited about this one just because it's totally weird to me. Pac-Man World is getting a ground-up remake for the Switch. I don't know why. That's just so funny to me. It's
Definitely
just the
one of the
strangest thing.
surprise announcements for sure. I
It looks
am-
great.
It does. It does. I'm a big Pac-Man fan, man. Like it's. I'm probably like, you guys probably get this too, but Pac-Man probably came out before we were born, but it's one of those things where I feel like most people within our generation kind of dismiss Pac-Man for some reason, and I love Pac-Man. I've always loved Pac-Man since I was a kid, and I'm stoked for this. This remake looks great.
Yeah,
This
it's
is what
just
Bomberman 64 deserved.
Right. That's right. That's right.
it's just so strange. Like, of all the games Bandai Namco is going to make a remake for, I wonder what path led them to choose this game, because it seemed totally out of left field to me. I don't know. Maybe people have been
It
asking
did.
for this, but
Yeah.
Well,
but they're
not just
putting
that.
a lot of effort. It seems like.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but it seems like Bandai Namco really has just been pumping out some Pac-Man games lately, because we just had Pac-Man Museum not long ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And then even before that, I think last year there was a whole an entire other collection with like Championship Plus and like 2 or 3 other games. Namco Museum, of course. I mean, there's when you look at what's available on the Switch, Pac-Man wise, there's so much that Bandai has been pumping out. So it's I don't know what's been driving them lately to just churn more Pac-Man stuff out. But I mean, hey, I'm for it. Keep doing it.
You
is
heard
worth
it here
pointing
first,
out-
folks. Pac-Man is coming back in a big way.
That's right.
It is worth pointing out on the whole Bandai Namco 3D platformer remake side, we're also getting Klonoa Fantasy Reverie Collection, I think is the name.
Yeah.
True.
So they're putting in a little bit of effort into kind of revitalizing their older platformers.
I love that.
Maybe it's just
Yeah.
that they're kind of, they're putting out feelers on, hey, what do people want? Maybe we can get back into the platformer business, and what do we start with for that?
Yeah, and the Klonoa games come out really soon, and I think the director even came out recently and said hey, we're hoping to make more Klonoa games after
Yes.
this or something along those lines. So, yeah, I love seeing these classic games come back. So there was quite a bit of that in this direct. We did get some new games shown off. There's this small indie game called Blanc, which looks really cool. It's very artistic. It's a co-op game. At least I think you can play it co-op, and it looks like you've got like a cub and this kind of like deer creature, and it looks like they're kind of helping each other puzzle their way through this black and white world that looks really beautifully drawn. I thought that one looked great.
Yeah, it looked really, really fun, really cute, really wholesome. I really hope one of the two doesn't die at the end.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's true. Because that's been like a trend lately with games like these. I don't know if you guys have played The First Tree, but it's a beautiful game where you follow this fox, and yeah, but it gets sad without spoiling it. It gets sad. So
Yeah, you can't have a game with a cute animal character without it going dark places.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one looked really good. And yeah, I love when they shine a spotlight on these smaller games kind of mixed in with these bigger games. One that kind of, I think, stole the show for a lot of people was Return to Monkey Island, which was announced a little while ago, but this was the first time we've really seen some gameplay of it. And we didn't see too much of it, but and it seems like, and there was a little bit of drama this week, because apparently some of the Monkey Island super fans out there were being not very kind on the internet. Who would have guessed that people would not be kind on the internet? And so now the creator is like kind of like not really online anymore, and it's always a shame to see people acting that way. But yeah, I mean, this Monkey Island game, it's got a different art style from the other games, and
I think it looks nice, personally.
Yeah, it does look nice. It's, the Ron Gilbert came out and basically said, like, he's like, yeah, like it does look different, but that's because the older games were really pushing graphical boundaries at the time. So, we didn't like choose that necessarily as a style. It was just what was cutting edge at the time. And so now we're trying to move that forward. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, people will never be happy with everything. So, but yeah, I thought that game looked interesting. I'm not a huge point and click fan. I feel like they're a relatively good fit for the Switch with the touchscreen, but I do still find myself missing using a mouse a lot of the time with them. So,
definitely. Yeah.
So I don't know if I would play that one on Switch necessarily, but cool that it's coming down the road for people who are interested in it. Now, here's something that I think, when they said it was a third-party showcase, I kind of wondered in the back of my head. I was like, I don't know if we're going to see it, but it makes sense. We saw a little bit of Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, which is I don't know if you guys hear those loud explosions going on behind me. I told you it was 4th of July. I think those are probably not the illegal fireworks. I just had to edit a video.
They heard you say sparks, and they were like, okay, no problem.
Yeah, my cat is probably freaking out right now. But anyways, Mario plus Rabbids. Yeah, that game is looking really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had the showcase a day after. I don't know if you guys watched it, but it was a great showcase. I was quite impressed. The first game is really good, but with this one, it seems that they are really taking to another level. The areas seem way more expensive. The art style is kind of different. It's not very Mario. It has some darker tones. It is very. I'm loving the tone that they're going with the game, and taking this whole thematic of Galaxy from Super Mario Galaxy, right? So
oh my gosh,
I'm loving
yeah.
the way that they are developing, how they are taking the series so far. And there's this new combat system which is way more freeform than the first one. So it seems to me that they are really putting the effort. I think this is the one game that still gives me hope on Ubisoft. I think it's the game from them that I always looking forward, and it seems that all the developers, at least in this game, all the developers are being well treated and they love to produce what they are doing. It really seems to be a product of love from the developers.
Yeah, they're very passionate.
Yeah, I was really struck by, they went into this more in the extended showcase the day after, but even though it's like very similar to the first game, you're not on a grid anymore for combat. So it's still turn-based, but instead of moving on a grid, you just kind of have this range of movement that you can kind of like, you know, you can kind of try a couple different like angles of attack before you commit to like locking in on a spot. So I think that's really cool. I've never seen that done in this type of strategy game before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has this kind of real-time element to it that I can imagine is going to make for a lot of interesting dynamic gameplay. Like, I think in the showcase we see them run into a bomb, grab the bomb, toss it at an enemy, like dealing all this damage before the actual shooting portion even starts. Just because of how much you can theoretically do before you even start attacking, it's going to open up a lot of possibilities.
I saw some people comparing to Valkyria Chronicles, but I'm not super sure because I never played that game. But it seems that it has kind of a similar system where you can like move on the ground before finalizing your turn and then continue with the strategy. But it seems to be a big step forward for them. I think it looks really interesting.
Yeah, and you know, we hadn't heard anything about this game for a while, so I think some people were not sure if it was really going to land this year. But yeah, it's coming out in late October, so right around that kind of holiday window.
And Yoko Shimomura is making music for this game, which is awesome. They announced in the showcase.
She's brilliant too. Like, she's fantastic. She's one of the best composers, I think, in games today.
Yeah, seems like it's going to be, you know, just as good, maybe better than the first one. And yeah, I'm really excited to see. I really hope they lean into the Super Mario Galaxy elements of it, because I know this is probably the closest thing we're ever going to get to a third Mario Galaxy game, so, and I'll take it. So yeah, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is coming out in October. And then kind of for the next chunk of the showcase, there were some smaller games they talked about. We don't really have time to get into all of these. One of the games that came out same day as the presentation was called Little Noah's Island of Paradise, which is, I couldn't really tell if it's a roguelite, but it's kind of a it is a roguelite, and it's like a side-scrolling action game, but you kind of have these little companions that go with you that you can kind of swap in and out, and they each have different abilities. It looked interesting. Haven't heard too much about it since it was shown off in the presentation, but you know, I like these random day one drops, are always kind of surprising.
I think I've heard good impressions of it from people that have played it generally. Like, apparently it's pretty good value for your money, so, you know, take that how you will. It does look pretty fun.
Yeah, and it is by the makers of Dragalia Lost, so, you know, that's at least interesting to me. Then we had Railgrade shown off, which is kind of a railway builder, like a management simulator. That one is being published by Epic Games and looks really interesting. I don't play a lot of these management style games, but I do like these ones that kind of have like city building elements to them. And hey, trains are cool, so so yeah, I thought that one looked interesting. I don't know if I'll play it anytime soon, just because there was so much good stuff shown off here. We also had RPG Time, The Legend of Right. I've never heard of this game before, but apparently this one has been out in Japan for a little while, and like, wow, really unique artistically.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one looks super interesting. Like, I don't even really know how to feel about it. Like, I appreciate what its ambitions and what to do, like what it's trying to do, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's something I just have to play. But you know, at first glance, I'm like, what? I don't really know what's happening.
There's a lot going on. It's like you're like playing this game like on like a Game Boy sitting on a desk, but then like there's all this other stuff going on around you. It's unique. I'll give them that. But yeah, I guess it's been out in Japan for a little while, and it's finally coming to the West, and this was just not on my radar at all. So it's always cool when they show off these, you know, out of left field things.
Yeah, an observation. When we reached this point of the presentation, something that I realized is how much I like how Nintendo does these presentations, because the variety of visual representation we saw just at this moment in the presentation with Nier, Bomberman, Mega Man, Pac-Man is so different from the presentations that we saw in the Summer Games Fest with all those dark and gray games one after another. So and there's not a single Nintendo game here. It's all third party. So it's fun to see how they try to make this variety show off here in this presentation.
Yeah, I think the presentation was really missing showing off like 7 space shooters in a row. I don't know why they just didn't.
Yeah, it's just not a Summer Games showcase without, every single Dead Space similar horror game in your show. Which, don't get me wrong, I love those types of games. But yeah, Nintendo has really gotten good at, surprising people and getting a lot of variety in. I didn't expect to see this. We saw a little bit more of Sonic Frontiers. They showed off the cyberspace levels, which are so far we've seen kind of the open world aspects of Sonic Frontiers, but the cyberspace levels are these very linear kind of, I don't really know if traditional 3D Sonic is the right word for it, but it's very different, and it's kind of a different element of the game. And I did get to play a little bit of it at my preview at Summer Games Fest, and not really enough to give like a firm impression of it, but I mean, what I played was fun, and it felt really good to control, and it was a really nice change of pace. I don't know how often we'll be seeing these linear levels, but from what I've heard people talking about who have played the game a little bit more than me, it sounds like they're going to be coming up like fairly often.
Yeah, I find it very amusing that this is yet another way that they're putting Green Hill Zone into the game.
Yeah, they are still using. I think this is the 5th time already in a row. So they really like their green zone. I think it's weird, right? They showed us this right now after seeing a lot of stuff from the open worlds, and they were kind of hiding this, but it seems to be like at least, I don't know, a big chunk of the game. And even now that they show us finally how it is the cyberspace, it was like 30 seconds of footage. So I still want to see more of this game. But I'm going to say that I really liked what I saw in this presentation. We could see how it's running on Switch, and yeah, you can see that it is not running perfectly. It is a little bit rough, but honestly, I was expecting worse, seeing how it was running on the first footage of IGN. So it was a cool look, but I still want to see more of these games. I want to see more of those cyberspace levels and all that stuff.
Yeah, they're definitely showing off more and more of the game, and I think people are feeling more optimistic about it overall. Again, I really enjoyed playing it, so I think once people get their hands on it, I think it'll be people will enjoy it, I think, for the most part. So all right, so we still got quite a few games to get through here, so I'm gonna just kind of quickly go through a couple of these games that we've already seen. I'm gonna go a little bit out of order here, so Disney Dreamlight Valley, if you guys listen to the show, Dennis and I are very excited about this one.
Very much. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. It's basically Disney Animal Crossing with like some like more classic Disney characters. Like, man, I want to go hang out with Wally. That's cool.
100%.
Like, who doesn't want Wally in their Animal Crossing town?
Slice of cheesecake.
That's amazing.
Beautiful summer day.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Just don't take him for a swim. He might not like that.
Oh, no, God, no. Never do that. No,
yeah. They show off a little bit more of Live Alive, which is coming out the same day as Xenoblade Chronicles 3, right, Nicolas?
A week before.
Week before, got it. All right.
There's some time.
If you are fast enough.
Great.
It's not a huge JRPG. You can do it.
No.
If you
it's like
sleep.
20 or 30 hours, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20, 30 hours. That's chump change.
Chump change. Chump change.
Anyone can do that.
6 hours a day. 6 hours a day. You can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, easy.
There's 48 hours in 2 days, so you can technically beat this game in 2 days.
True.
I wouldn't recommend it, but yeah, hey, it might be really good.
Treehouse was really nice to see. They showed off a bit more gameplay for the near future, and I believe it was the Wild West segment, and they also had little segments where Yoko Shimomura and the director of the game, whose name I cannot remember, sorry about that, were talking about the game and just kind of their experiences with making the remake and how they were really happy to be able to bring that to everyone. So that was really nice to see.
Yeah, and yeah, that one is right around the corner, and I'm really curious to see how, now that this game is coming out to Western audiences for the first time. I'm excited to see how people see it. I've never played it, so I'm
think
hoping to
it'll
get
be
my
well
hands on it
received.
at some point. Yeah. We also saw a little bit more of Minecraft Legends, which was announced back at the Xbox showcase. We talked a little bit about that. It looks like it's a weird kind of RTS take on Minecraft, and still don't know too much about the game, but cool that it's here. Portal Companion Collection is out now. That was shown off in a previous Nintendo Direct, and we hadn't heard anything about it in a while. But yeah, it's only like $20, and you get Portal 1
yep.
and 2.
Yeah, for some of the greatest puzzle games of all time. Well, really just one of some of the greatest games, period. Of all
Oh my
time.
gosh!
In
Yeah.
Brazil, it's like $10.
Wow.
It's really good
wow.
price here. Yeah, they localize the
nice.
price a
Even
little,
better.
so it's nice.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, have you played those games, Luis?
I played the first one, and I never played the second one. So I think I heard that the co-op is nice. So I was wondering if I should
is.
play with my girlfriends. I think I'll buy it to play the second one.
Yeah,
I would definitely recommend it.
Yes.
The co-op is great, but really just the way they amp up the story in the second game is just really cool. Like if you're
Yeah, it does a fantastic job of kind of changing the stakes and just expanding on what made Portal 1 so good. Kind of changing up what you expect from the game as well. It's very good.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden I want to go replay it. Here's another kind of out of left field one. So it was a couple years ago that we got Doraemon Story of Seasons, which is, believe it or not, a Story of Seasons game featuring Doraemon, and we are getting a sequel, which I'm not very familiar with the first one, and I'm gonna be totally honest, I don't know who Doraemon is. He looks like a great guy. Don't want to write
have
him
a drink
off,
with him.
but yeah,
He's
he
a
looks
good dude. He's a
friendly.
good dude.
He's
Yeah.
pretty big in Japan, right? I'm not
Yeah.
too familiar,
he's
but
huge.
I heard the name already sometimes.
If I'm not mistaken,
Right.
the manga has actually sold hundreds of millions of
Oh,
copies.
yeah,
if I'm
that
not
explains.
mistaken.
Really?
Yeah, he's
is
huge.
very
Like,
big.
Doraemon's big, yeah.
Wow, I guess I must just be really out of the loop then. Yeah, maybe there's this huge Doraemon hype train that I need to get on board with. I don't know.
Well, I think it's kind of similar to how Detective Conan is. Some things just don't really translate, to the rest of the world as much as they do in Japan, despite their success, right? So, even though something like Demon Slayer blew the world up, Doraemon and Detective Conan, while gigantic and almost, they are iconic, within that country. It just they're not really as illustrious in for the rest of the world. So.
Yeah, that's what Doraemon is missing to make it big worldwide, is just more decapitation.
Obviously.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's what America likes. I mean,
Yeah, that's the problem. Doraemon needs to be a shonen, and then we'll be good. They need power levels, and everything will be good.
Gadgets become weapons. It'll work great.
Right.
oh my
Yeah,
god.
when we get Doraemon Splinter Cell, I will absolutely play that. That is going to be very high on my
Oh
list.
god.
Yeah.
Ubisoft, if you're listening.
Please. It's $1 million idea. We also got a new Dragon Quest game, Dragon Quest Treasures, a spin-off, and I guess it somewhat ties into Dragon Quest XI from what I've heard. Dennis, you're excited about this one?
Oh my god, yes. Oh my god. I mean, it looks... I've just always loved Dragon Quest, but this one in particular, I don't know what it is with, series like these where I'm always more hyped for spin-offs, I think, than I am for a mainline series, Because at least with Dragon Quest, if Dragon Quest 12, if that ever becomes a thing, or 13 and 14 and beyond, what you're getting. It's Dragon Quest, but here's another turn-based RPG, and it's like, okay, cool. Great. But the spin-offs is where they can really have fun, right? So, for example, some of my favorite games of all time are the Dragon Quest, Joker games, Monsters, and those on DS were fantastic. I loved those. And Dragon Quest Builders as well. My God, that's a chef's kiss, just right? And so now this one is, I'm just super stoked for this one. It just looks super charming, and it just has a lot of appeal to me. Obviously I'm not going to be able to speak for everyone, but I'm really stoked for this one. Really.
Just to give some context, this is a spin-off of Dragon Quest XI. We play as two characters that we meet those characters in Dragon Quest XI. They kind of tell that when they were kids, they were explorers and all of that stuff. So this game is basically during that moment. So I mean, it's kind of a prequel, you say, but of a small story from Dragon Quest XI. So it's really interesting for those who play the main game also.
Yeah, you know, and I feel like I gotta make a confession here. Like, I loved Dragon Quest XI from a gameplay perspective. It was so much fun. I was having a great time, but man, I couldn't finish it because I think I mentioned this before, but listening to the same song over and over again in the field, I just could not do it. And I was like, I'm not going to play with the game muted the whole time. Like, that's, you know. So I just never finished it. But hopefully they learned their lesson from that, because it's a shame. All right, and we're coming up on the end of the show. There's one big announcement we want to get to that I'm sure you've already heard about. But before that, this really cool game from Square Enix called Harvestella, which is it's a mix of like a life simulation and RPG elements, and it looks really good. You basically, the premise is, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier in the chat, but basically there's, you know, you've got your normal 4 seasons, and then you have the 5th season, Quietus, which is a season of death, and your crops wither, and it says people can't even walk outside in the game description, and the season is getting longer each year. I'm like, that's like the most Square Enix premise, but I love it.
Yeah, they always throw in some stuff like that. I'm surprised the crystals themselves aren't exploding and stuff like that.
I mean,
Right.
watch, the 4 seasons are all going to be crystals, and Quietus is the
That's
evil
true.
5th crystal.
That's right.
Yeah, it's
I think Square Enix always... a lot of people complain about Square support to the Switch, but I think in general, almost every Nintendo Direct, I get the impression that we receive a lot from Square. Just here we saw Live Alive, Nier Automata, Dragon Quest Treasures, and now Harvestella's. They are always so present in those presentations. And announcing this totally new game, I wasn't expecting to see something like that. It looks like a real Rune Factory, but the visual reminded me of the Final Fantasy games, a little bit more realistic, and the scenarios are beautiful. I love the art style. So I'm not big on those farming games, but it caught my attention.
Yeah, it definitely looks a lot nicer than I mean, I'm not going to say than I expected, because I did not expect it, but it definitely looked pretty nice. I was surprised by it. It's something I might actually keep an eye out for in October, which I believe is when it's releasing. God, everything is releasing in October.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's going to be one of those months. We were talking about like, oh, we need to bring more reviewers onto the site because there's just too many games coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks great, and yeah, it is a Switch exclusive, and yeah, Square Enix really has been really good on their support. They also have, we didn't see this one, I kind of thought we would, but the Diofield Chronicle, they announced a little while back, is also kind of in that HD 2D style, and that one is also coming to Switch, and maybe they're just not talking about it because their last HD 2D game, you know, came out a little while ago. Well, and actually, we're getting another one soon with Live Alive, so maybe they're just waiting to talk more about that one. But yeah, lots of great Square Enix RPGs coming. And of course, you know, I know we've been talking about this direct for a while, but had to build up to the big announcement, which was the thing that we all had hoped would happen, but weren't ever quite so sure because Atlas is weird. But we are in fact getting Persona 3 Portable, Persona 4 Golden, and Persona 5 Royal on the Switch starting this October with Persona 5.
Finally. The surveys worked.
maybe it's because did anyone else feel weird like the thunder was maybe I mean again I can't speak for everyone because I'm sure there's a ton of people that wanted it on Switch, myself included actually, but did anyone feel that thunder kind of got lost because of the announcement on Xbox's showcase? That it just didn't have that same impact. So when I saw it I was like, okay, there it is.
Right.
Like I just didn't, versus when I saw it on the Xbox showcase I was like, oh my god. You know, there it is, it's happening. You know, I don't know, the thunder was sort of lost.
Because you know that what happened was Microsoft paid Atlas a shit ton of money to reveal their versions first, and
Absolutely.
you know the games were always going to come to the Switch, but they had to wait.
I wonder if after seeing the Xbox presentation, it would be a nice move for Nintendo to maybe move Nier Automata to the final review of the presentation and Persona at the beginning. I think leaving Persona at the end, it felt like Nintendo was going to do this big revelation, but then their presentation was at the end of the month. But we didn't know it was coming to the Switch. It would be really weird if it doesn't, but at least we have the confirmation.
It's Atlas.
Yeah, it's Atlas,
Right.
so I didn't know.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited. I have played Persona 4 and 5, but I have not played Persona 3. And I might pick it up on the Switch, but I do have it on my Vita, and so I don't necessarily know if I want to re-buy it.
See, that's how I
wonder
feel
if they're... Yeah, I as far as I'm aware, they're not necessarily adding anything new to any of these games.
No.
I don't know. Am I right about that, or...
I think there's just the versions that are...
The ultimate version of its game, I think. But
I don't think they're adding anything past what was in like, the portable or golden or royal editions from the, on the other versions.
I think
that's-
it will, to me personally, it will depend on the price. Of course, if they ask full price for each one of these games, I probably won't buy on Switch because I have an Xbox with Game Pass. But if they ask for a reasonable price, I really would like to have those games on Switch because like each Persona is a gazillion hours of gameplay and it would be way more comfortable to play with my portable. But yeah, because they are technically free on Game Pass, to me at least, I'm not 100% sure if I'll get them on Switch.
Yeah, like the value is kind of lost because of it, and like, and I'm also someone like Nick who I own the original one on PSP, but I also do have it on my Vita as well, which I still actively use from time to time. God bless that thing, and and I have Persona 4 Golden on PC, and I actually do own Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal on my PS4, so it's like, man, like, do I want to pay for these games again? Here we are.
Yeah,
So
you don't need
if I
them,
do want to
yeah.
jump in, I don't need them. So, but if I do get that urge, like you said, Luis, they're on Game Pass, which I also have. So it's just like I have access to them. So it's not like So do I really need them on Switch? Who knows?
I do believe pricing wise, I think Persona 5 Royal is $50. I want to say it's lower than normal full MSRP. And then since Persona 4 Golden, I believe, is $20 on Steam, I don't think they would go higher than that for Switch because those games aren't supposed to get physical versions. Persona 4 Golden and Persona 3 Portable, only Persona 5 is.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think they're going to be slightly lower. Personally, I'm definitely going to pick these up because I've never played any of the three. And at least for Persona 5, that'll be a physical version that you can pick up for Switch, which I am definitely very happy for.
I think you'll really enjoy those games.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Three more like 100-hour RPGs to add to the backlog. Hooray.
Dennis, I feel like you might know the answer to this question, because I have been curious. I know Persona 5 Royal supposedly adds like quite a bit of extra content to the base Persona 5, but it adds a whole new semester, but like, do you think that's worth it? Like because I played all the way through Persona 5, and I'm not sure if I want to put in another 50 hours just to get to a little bit of new content, but do you feel like the game like changes enough?
From my perspective, just barely, I'm gonna say yes. Just barely, though.
Okay.
Only because there is enough of a difference there in terms of perspective, because you do get that new sort of protagonist to play with, and I think there's enough there to warrant that replay. So I'm gonna go ahead and say yes, and because it does kind of freshen things up a little bit. But as someone who, I bought Persona 5 at launch, full MSRP, but I would not have gotten Persona 5 Royal had at the time I not received a review copy, right? Because I think at full MSRP at the time I wasn't convinced enough, and even after playing it I was like, this is still good, and it definitely feels like a definitive version because it is, but if I had just spent $60 on Persona 5 and then spent another $60 on Royal, or even just got the expansion, which I think was $40 for that upgrade, $30 or $40 for that upgrade, I would have been a little peeved, you know. But if,
Yeah.
especially for those out there like Nicolas who have never played Persona 5, oh my God, Persona 5 Royal is going to be one of the most beautiful things you ever experience in JRPG history.
Yeah, just hoping I can get Xenoblade 3 done before that comes out.
Yeah, I don't know about that, man, but we're rooting for you. All right, well, hey guys, that is it. That was the indie, not the indie world, the Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase. Woo! So thanks for listening to us talk about literally everything that was shown off in that showcase. And there's quite a bit coming to the Switch, so that's exciting. It was pretty packed. Yeah, it was a packed. It took us longer to talk about it than it did for them to have the presentation. So I mean, that's a good sign.
True. It was way better than the past Partners Directs, because when I saw the announcements of Partner Directs, I have some PTSD. Like, oh my God, it's not again from 2020.
Wrestling.
But this was way better than the other ones.
Yes.
Right. Hey, so yeah, with all that, we do actually have a little bit of other news to get into. Some rumors, really. But this is exciting because we've all been waiting for Metroid Prime, both Metroid Prime 4 and the rumors of the Metroid Prime trilogy to hit the Switch. And we're getting some more rumors, and I know, rumors don't necessarily mean anything, but these rumors do come from Jeff Grubb of Giant Bomb, who has a pretty good track record. And he says, and this is a quote from him, he says, "I can say that I've been told pretty definitively that Metroid Prime Remastered is going to be one of their big holiday games." He said, "In the past, this is something I've heard is in the works. They've had things happening with this game. Their plans are to release the game this holiday, almost certainly to line up with the 20th anniversary in November. And this is apparently going to be a fairly substantial redo of the game. We don't have a ton of details on it, but what he says is Metroid Prime 1, my understanding is that's getting the big remaster treatment, and then Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 are sort of getting, they'll probably get like updated controls and things like that, but they're not quite getting the same overhaul that Metroid Prime 1 is getting. So that is the rumor of the moment.
I think
it lines up. Sorry, go ahead, Luiz.
No, I was just going to think that this Metroid Prime rumor is the rumor that people are kind of tired, because we heard it like almost every year right now and it never comes. But honestly, I think that when something started to happen like that, it's because it actually exists, just that Nintendo does not want to reveal yet. But eventually, after more 50 rumors, it will eventually come true. But I think it's getting closer. It's getting closer.
Yeah, this lines up with the rumors from, I guess it would have been several months ago now, that I think we might have mentioned once on the show, that basically the idea would be that Retro was working on remasters of all three of the original games, like full-on remaster, almost remake style iterations. And then when Prime 4 got its development restarted and Retro got put in charge of that, they kind of had to shift focus to Prime 4 rather than doing the remasters. So the only one that they had close to finish was the Metroid Prime remaster, which is why that one is getting kind of the full treatment, and then 2 and 3 would be getting, the smaller, like, these are just upscaled ports kind of style.
Yeah. Yeah, and no, you're right. And Luiz, I totally understand your point. Like, yeah, we have been hearing various rumors about these games for a long time, and I think everyone just wants Nintendo to either say something or say that these things are not happening. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's the more I hear about it, the more I really want it to be real, and I think I'm sure I'm not the only one. Although Luiz, you just played through the at least the first 1 or 2 Metroid Prime games not too long ago, correct?
I finished the first one and I started the second, but I still have to finish it. I'm at the very beginning. It's not that the game didn't grab me. It's just that there's a lot of other games from my backlog, so I kind of forgot it a little bit. But I'm still planning to go back. I think it's kind of weird, that approach, how Nicolas mentioned. They are going to full remaster the first one, but then they are going to release the second, the third one as just a small remaster. It's kind of weird because let's imagine that they are creating a new engine or a new look for this full-on remake. So I imagine it would be kind of easy to translate those other games to this new mod. Like for example, the Crash trilogy. We saw the remake of Crash 1, Crash 2, Crash 3. Those three games originally used the same engine. They were very similar. And I think Metroid Prime it's kind of that. Those three games use a similar engine. So I think it would be a little weird to receive a full remake of the first one and a small remasters of the other two. But it's Nintendo, so it's very probable they can do something like that.
Yeah, I don't know enough about game development to say whether, after you've fully remastered the first one, if it would be substantially easier to make the other two and third. But that is definitely a point I've thought of where, like, I wonder about that. And then you also have to take in consideration that I don't know how audiences are really going to react to, like, hey, let's show them this super cool remaster. And then, like, a few months later, they're like, hey, let's show them the second game, and it's just an upscale port. Like, I feel like that'll definitely raise some complaints. I mean, maybe they can alleviate that if they release... Because they'll probably release Prime 1 as, like, its own $60 game, because it's Nintendo. If they package Prime 2 and 3 into one game, because they're both, like, upscaled ports as opposed to full remasters, I guess that could help.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we just have to kind of see at this point.
Yeah, it really just depends on how much work they're doing, because if they're making if this Metroid Prime 1 project is like a full-on remake, or they're remaking a lot of assets, then I can see why, maybe that would be a substantial amount of work that is just not feasible for them to do for these other games. I could see that. And, I mean, honestly, like, these games they all hold up really well to this day. So personally, like, I mean, as much as I would be really excited to see what all three of them would look like totally rebuilt in a modern engine, I'm going to be fine seeing just what the first one would look like, and just having ways to play through the full trilogy on the go is enough for me, even if it's not ideal.
It's true. I agree.
But again, these are all rumors, and I like talking about rumors, but, it is really, we just have to wait and see if Nintendo says anything. And, but, fingers crossed, as always. And, speaking of Nintendo making weird decisions, as they do, Nintendo just announced a new service. It is a Japan-only service at the moment. It is called, and this is the actual name, Nintendo Wide Care. Wide Care. It's got a nice ring to it, don't you think?
To a degree, but it sounds more like health insurance than anything else. I mean,
yes.
Rather than like a technology repair, thing.
You gotta keep your Switch healthy.
Which is what it is. Yeah, you don't want your Nintendo Switch getting too wide. That would be bad. Yeah. So no, this is a Japan-only subscription service. It's basically like their equivalent of Apple Care. It sounds like, where like, it's like basically if your Switch gets damaged, if you drop it or spill water on it or whatever, your kid throws it out the window or something, like, you have accidental damage coverage. But the thing that's funny to me is they're like, oh, and you can get your Joy-Cons repaired. Like, they're trying to charge you for this thing, which they already kind of offer for free. But they, like, mentioned the Joy-Cons in their announcement for it. They're like, oh, you can get your Joy-Cons fixed. I'm sure they would much rather have people paying for that than...
To be fair, I think the free Joy-Con repair is a US-only thing that happened because of some lawsuits. I'm pretty sure it's not a thing in other regions. Like, I don't think it's a thing here in Europe, and I would assume it's not a thing in Japan. Yeah.
Oh,
that was very much a situation where they did it because they kind of had to, as opposed to them, wanting to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes some sense. I could see that being weird. It's still not great, but I guess I can understand where they're coming from, at least.
I'll tell you one thing that I do miss, though, that Europe still has that America doesn't, Nintendo-wise, which is, you guys, if I'm not mistaken, still have those Switch vouchers that you can get for $100, and you can choose any two Nintendo releases to use them on to get for free. Well, quote unquote, you pay $100, but yeah.
It's like a discount.
That's a thing in Japan for sure. It might be a thing still in Europe. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to double check. I haven't personally used it.
Okay, because when that existed, oh my god, I was all about that. Because I was
Oh, it was
every time-
awesome.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, you pay $100. It effectively made each game $50, and you could choose any two games so long as you bought it within the year. I think that every voucher lasted 1 year, and and I remember right before it expired, before they weren't offering it anymore, and then everybody's expiration date was the same day. I had to choose. I basically ended up getting Paper Mario Origami King. That was the last thing I ended up getting, which thank God I got that for quote unquote free because that was I don't know. I was a little upset with that. It wasn't a bad game. It wasn't a bad game, but it was.
Forced your hand.
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand. Yeah.
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 I think I used my vouchers on Astral Chain and Dragon Quest XI, so I was pretty happy with
good
how that
ones.
worked out.
I
Yeah.
got quite a few. I think I got 3 separate sets of vouchers. I spent a lot of money on.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, hey, if you're gonna be buying these games on day one anyways, like it was kind of a no-brainer.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And-
That's probably
yeah.
why they got rid of it, is because it made too much sense for the
we know
consumer.
that Nintendo doesn't
That's the
do
thing.
do sales anyway, so it was a
Yeah.
great deal.
I
Yeah.
just looked it up, and apparently it's still available in Europe. So
Oh.
there you go.
Ooh. Sadly,
yeah.
Nintendo doesn't let you buy anything from another country that it is not in the same area. Like there's the America area, the Europe area. Because in the beginning, here in Brazil, we bought a lot of games from the South Africa eShop because it was cheaper. And here in Brazil, we do anything to pay a little less because games are super expensive. But then I think
Yeah.
in 2018 or 2019, Nintendo stopped we can't do that anymore because your credit card will not be accepted, even
Yeah,
if it
you
is
need to go
international.
you need to go through some other means, like buying an eShop card.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Getting a different credit card.
Yeah, I'm glad the console is region free because like technically nothing is stopping anyone from making an account in whatever region they want.
Yeah.
So you can still go and download those Japanese exclusive games if you want to, but yeah, it's still not perfect solution. Probably as good as we're gonna get though. All right, well we're kind of going off on a tangent here now, but there's one more thing I want to talk about really quick before we get into our last segment of the show, and that is just so. Little bit of nostalgia for y'all. Back in the Wii days, there was this game called Epic Mickey, which was a pretty big Wii exclusive game that eventually got a sequel, and it was a totally original Disney game with Mickey Mouse as the main character, which is not something you see super often. And he had a paintbrush, and it was all about kind of using this paintbrush with the Wii remote to kind of restore color to the world, and it was really cool, and the games did fairly well, and frankly, I think the only reason why we didn't get more of them is because Disney kind of got out of the games business for a little while. They're getting back into it now, but back towards the end of the Wii days, they shut down a lot of their studios, and so a lot of games got canceled. And one of the games that never came to be that we got a little more information of lately was called Epic Donald. And it was a spin-off of the Disney Epic Mickey games, and this Disney-focused YouTube channel showed off some gameplay of it, and it's just, I don't know, it's cool to see these. I always love seeing the stories behind games that almost happened,
Yeah, this series in particular is fascinating because Epic Mickey is like, imagine that you had to develop a Mickey game and you go through the less obvious routes possible. It's like completely different from everything that you imagine from a typical Mickey game. And I love the concept. It was dark, it was different. I had the game on my Wii. I never finished it, but I was always fascinated by the game, by the story of the development of it. And the people behind it, the studio behind it was super passionate. And they had this idea. We learned about that, I think, with the video from the video game historian, Lion Robertson, if I'm not mistaken. And he revealed that we had a Donald spin-off in production, but now we are seeing that for the first time. And there was also a card game, like a Epic Mickey card, something like along those lines that they were developing. They had all those, and another Epic Mickey also. So there was all those. They were like full of creativity to keep up with this series, to keep up developing these games. And looking at the footage for this game that now we've finally leaked, it looked like they were following the same idea of this more dark look, this different approach it would be so cool to see that going forward. But sadly, when Disney changed the CAO and all that stuff, he said that console games are not the future, mobile game is the future. So here we are now. Yeah. And we never saw those games.
Okay, guy. Okay. Somebody needs to sit that dude down and be like, look, listen.
Yeah.
Don't you guys have phones?
Well, and again, not to go off on a tangent here, but like Disney was making some cool stuff around that time. They had their Disney made Split Second, which is like a totally original racing game.
Racing games.
That is like, it's so cool. It's still super unique to this day.
Yes, it is.
So I don't know. That was always a shame to me that they shut down some of those types of projects. But yeah, if you guys like seeing this kind of behind the scenes stuff of game development, definitely recommend check out Did You Know Gaming on YouTube, because it feels like every video they put out, they reveal something crazy about Nintendo, specifically game development. And I've learned so much from watching them. So if that kind of stuff is interesting to you guys, I recommend it strongly.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Nick,
folks.
Before we move on to the last segment, can we just briefly mention how the Xenoblade 3 Special Edition pre-orders went back up this week and had the exact same problems that they had several weeks ago?
Congratulations, Nintendo.
Yay!
I didn't bring it up, Nicolas, because I didn't want to re-traumatize you.
See, I actually managed to get one, which I did not expect because I went through the checkout process. I managed to get to the screen where you can do the checkout, and then I got an infinite load on the button, and that happened twice, like within I think a span of like 2 hours, and then I just gave up. And like an hour and a half later, I got a confirmation email, even though I never actually got through the checkout screen. So I don't know what happened, but I'm not complaining. But I'm still going to complain about that process because what the hell, Nintendo?
Yeah.
I wish. Okay, I actually tweeted earlier about how, like, you know, the way Xbox and PlayStation handled their direct orders when the Series X and PS5 first came out, and even now they still kind of do it, as well as how the Steam Deck orders happened with their queue systems and just having to register for a spot in line, has been beautiful. And I understand that this is a piece of software compared to, you know, high demand hardware that's, you know, impacted by chip shortages and stuff like that. But, you know, Nintendo has a history of only making 5 of every collector's edition anyways. And so I wish they would just anticipate demand like this, because this is not the first time and it's not the last time. This is like the 10,000th time. And yet the process is repeated time and time and time again. And as someone who used to work at GameStop, it even impacted the stores. So people who would go in and try to pre-order at the store, whether it was GameStop, Best Buy, whatever, they would have the same issues. Never mind trying to buy directly from them, you know? So literally our systems would shut down, and it would just cause problems. We tell people come back later, we'll call you later, whatever, drop the phone number here, whatever. It's ridiculous that this happens time and time and time again. I understand, again, it's hard to anticipate with every game, you know, how much you're going to be able to sell. But again, this has happened time and time again. You know, so you have an R&D department. Do some, I'm trying to say this without expletives, just do some R&D. You know, do some research and development and try to figure out what you can do to mitigate these issues in the future, and make this a seamless process for your consumers, because this is how you piss people off. You know, I didn't even care for getting one, and I'm pissed off for everyone else. You know, like it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy.
It's especially frustrating because this was the second time for the same thing, like with weeks apart, and it was the exact same issues.
Right.
Yeah, well, you know, guys, that's because the way you're supposed to order your special editions, obviously everyone knows this. You need to write Nintendo a letter. You need to politely ask them to mail you one. And you have to type in write the secret word in there, and then they'll send you one. That's
because it's special.
Yeah,
it's special. Yeah, special process.
I thought the secret was to go on eBay and get one for triple the MSRP.
There you go. Yeah, that's the secret for rich people. That's the secret, or the desperate. Either way. Yeah. All right. Well. Yeah, quite a bit happened this week, but we got through it, and it's an exciting time to be a Nintendo fan, and I think in lieu of getting a full-on first-party direct, I think what we got was pretty good. And although it does make you wonder when we're going to get, details on like some of these first-party games that Nintendo has coming up.
Probably around September.
Yeah. It's going to be a heck of a September Direct.
All right, folks. Well, before we wrap up the show for the week, let's go around the circle here and just see what has everyone been playing. Nicolas, let's start with you. What have you been playing this week?
Yeah. So actually, a few different things. First is that I noticed that Egghead came out, which was the one indie world game that we had talked about in the past. Well, one of them. And so I just bought that and quickly played through it and finished it in just a few hours, and that was really fun. Just a really nice little creative platformer. If you're looking for like a nice 2 to 4 hour small puzzle platformer experience, I definitely recommend it. It was very cute and charming and fun. Then there was the Live Alive demo, which I played a little bit of and got through like one chapter of that. Really enjoyed it. I honestly think that's one of the best looking games on Switch in my opinion. It just looks really, really nice with the HD2D style, even nicer than Octopath. And I only got through one chapter of the 3 available because then Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak came out a little bit earlier than I expected in the day, and I switched gears to that, and I've been playing that since.
Yeah, no, you've certainly got your hands full. Yeah, Egghead, I remember that game now that you bring it up, and it did look really cool. Totally fell off my radar, but I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it, because yeah, I love jumping into those smaller games from time to time in between these bigger releases to help clear the palette, and yeah, that one looked really unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was really short. That's probably the one stickler, is that it might be a little bit too short for some people, because I think beating it only takes like 3-ish hours, and then completing it 100% would only take you like 4, maybe 5 if you're stretching it. It is only $10 though, so I mean, depending on what you're looking for, it can be a really nice little fun experience.
Yeah, I mean, we've all spent $10 on far less entertaining things, I'm sure. So, it's a small price to pay.
Yep.
Well, very cool. Luiz, what about you? What have you been playing this last week or so?
So recently we had the sale on the eShop, and I finally bought a game that I wanted to buy, I think, since I had the Switch, basically, which was the Mega Man X Legacy Collection. I bought the first part of the Legacy Collection because I really wanted to play Mega Man X4, which I remember playing that game when I was a kid because I had a PS1, but I never got to finish because Mega Man is super hard. And now I finally was able to replay the game. I did the Zero route. I played with Zero, and it was super fun. I really like the Axis series. I really like how it feels more cool than the casual Mega Man. And this one in specific, I think the level design is probably the best in the series. Maybe this or the first one. And I really like the look, the sprites work, because on the PS1 era, not a lot of companies were doing sprites because 3D was the cool thing, but I love how the sprites evolved from the SNES to the PS1. It is a super fun game. It is super hard. I died a lot of times, but I enjoy dying. And the level design, the boss design, it's just classic Mega Man experience. The only thing that didn't age well is the dub. The American dub is like terrible, terrible. In the emotional moments, it's super bad. But it's kind of part of the game already, so it's not a big issue. But I really like.
So bad,
what am I
good.
fighting for?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Zero screaming. Yeah.
Oh.
That's funny. Yeah, I've never gotten super into Mega Man. I mean, I don't know what it is. They just don't really appeal to me. But I had a similar experience with Mega Man 11. There's like a good amount of voice acting like at the start of that game, and I was like, "What is going on? This is wonderful," but also I was like cringing the whole time. I was like,
I never played that one. I want to play it. I think it's on sale also.
Well, no, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't realize you were such a big Mega Man fan. But yeah, hey, you must be excited that almost all the games are on the Switch now.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of nostalgia, but I did not finish a lot of games from the series, and now I'm kind of catching up. I want to play the ZX games that is also on Switch, and then eventually I want to buy the new ones from the Battle Network also. I just love Mega Man. His design is so cool. I remember when I was a kid watching the anime and seeing all that stuff from Mega Man. I always loved it. So I have this sweet spot for the character.
Yeah, yeah, he kind of looks like an action figure. You know,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
has that like aesthetic to him, like the toys you'd play with as a kid. Well, very cool. Dennis, what about you? What have you been playing this last week?
Yeah, well, we actually were talking about it earlier, but I didn't want to get too deep into it because I wanted to talk about it now, which was the Portal Companion Collection, actually.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good.
I'm such a big fan of Portal, you guys. You have no idea. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I mean, when I first got when I was, maybe like 10 years ago, when I got a laptop for the first time, because I was always a desktop guy. The first thing I did on my laptop was I got an Aperture Laboratories like decal and put it on my laptop. And I don't have tattoos, but I always thought about if I did get tattoos, one of the first ones I would get would absolutely be Portal tattoos. So yeah, I mean, Portal's just always been a big part of my life. I love Portal, and so yeah, I've been playing through that. Portal 1 and 2 look absolutely beautiful on the Switch. I was a little worried at first, and I'm not sure why, because the games are relatively old. We're talking early 2000s, so I'm not sure why I even like hesitated for a second, in how they would run or even look on the Switch, because they really do look phenomenal. And I don't remember them looking as good as they do. Did they touch it up a little bit, or is this just a straight port?
I thought it
Because
was just a straight port, but I
that's
mean,
what I thought.
these are both PC games, so they probably
True.
scale down pretty well.
Yeah, probably because because the shading and the reflections look really good, and I'm just thinking to myself like, wow, like did this look like this back in 2000 and I don't know 4, 5, 6, whenever they came out, So,
Yeah.
but yeah, they look really crisp, especially on a Nintendo Switch OLED, which I've been playing them on. It was great waking up that morning, and I missed the initial direct, but the first thing I was going to do when I woke up, because it was 6 a.m. here when it happened. But I was gonna watch it. But surprisingly, my my girlfriend surprised me with the Portal Companion Collection. So on the
Aw.
Switch, so once I turned it on, I was like, what are these?
That's
They
awesome.
were all
Like, wait, when did this
nostalgic.
happen?
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
that was also super surprising because I didn't realize it was going to be released that day, right? Like we knew, like we were talking about earlier, that Portal was coming to the Switch from the last direct, but there was no release date, so I guess it just had a surprise day one release after that direct. And yeah, I've just been playing that nonstop. I beat Portal 1 surprisingly quick. I've also played that game hundreds of times, so
It's a short
um,
game. The first Portal is
yeah,
not a super long game to get through,
right.
especially if you know what
Uh,
you're doing and you're replaying it.
Yeah, because I remember the first time I played that on PC forever ago. Man, I mean, I was struggling with some of them, but now I just ran through it this time around, So,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's been a couple years since I last played it. But yeah, anyways, long story short, I mean, they're brilliant on the Switch. If you've thought about getting them to play again, please do. They're still just as great as they once were. And even if you've never played it, do yourself a favor and get a piece of video game history, because that's what this is. This is the game that people always point to when they're always making relations, right? So, when people are always like, oh, that's kind of like Zelda. Oh, that's kind of like Dark Souls, This is on that Mount Rushmore of video games, right? Of like whenever there's a puzzle game that has even some semblance of either some sort of time shift or mechanic like that, or dimension sort of changing, what's the first thing people go to? Oh, it's like Portal. That's always the comparison people make. So yeah, it's a phenomenal game. Has been, has always been, and always will be. So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, and if that hasn't convinced you, Portal was also nominated for the World Video Game Hall of Fame. So I mean, that should give
There
you
you
a
go.
sense for its impact right there.
Yep. Now it really makes me want the orange box though.
Oh
on
my
the
gosh!
Switch.
Well, that was how
yeah.
that was how I originally played it.
Yep, me too.
I bought my Xbox 360 to buy the orange box and Portal 2, and those were pretty much how I broke in that system. And they're some of my best video game memories. And
Absolutely.
yeah, the more people that can play these games, the better. And really hope that we see more of Portal in the future. I don't know if we ever will, but I
We're
feel
talking
like
about
there's
Valve and trying to reach the
I
number
know.
3. That's
I know.
that's a tough one.
Well, and there's all these great Portal fan games too on the PC that use the same engine and kind of like, expand. So there is more Portal out there if you play these first 2 games and you want more, which I think a lot of people will. So yeah. So as far as what I've been playing this week, quite a bit, but the main game I want to talk about is it came out a little while ago on the Switch. It's called Carry On, and yeah, you guys remember this one? It's that weird kind of, they called it a reverse horror game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I
space
played a little
horror
bit of
game
it
from
on
the other
Game Pass.
perspective.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you play as this big red amorphous tentacle blob, and you are like escaping from this facility, and you have like this thing has multiple mouths on it, and you increase your biomass by like brutally like just dragging these poor scientists into this monster's mouth, and it's a very violent, and it is a very like, it's not a game you feel good about while you're playing, because you're like, wow, I'm just like straight up murdering these scientists. But at the same time, like, this game it's so unique and it feels amazing to play. Like, so much work you can tell when playing this game has gone into just making this monster feel like gross and powerful as it moves on. Like, it really does slither through the environment, and it squeezes into these crevices, and it's really unlike anything I've played in this type of side-scrolling game before. I've never controlled a character that has moved in this way and felt this way before. And visually it's just really striking too. I was playing this on the TV, and my fiance, who doesn't play a ton of video games, she was like, wow, this is super unique. And so yeah, and it's not a super long game. I haven't beat it yet, but I've heard it's only like a 5 to 6 hour game. So I'm hoping to finish it up in the next day or two, because I really didn't think I would like it very much, but I've been thinking about it a lot when I haven't been playing it, which is always a good sign. That's pretty much our show. Thank you as always, everyone, for tuning in. This has been episode 15 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. As always, if you like the show, please spread the word and feel free to share out our show on the various social platforms. You can listen to us pretty much everywhere. We are on Audible, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, pretty much everywhere. So if you want to catch our video version on YouTube, we've got lots of options for you. And if you have any suggestions for the show for future episodes, or you want to give us some feedback, we are always open to it. You can always comment down on our YouTube page, or you can send us an email. Our official email is in the show notes. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to our episode 15 as we worked through the Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase, and we will be back at you next week with everything that is new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. See you guys later.